Good morning and welcome back to another edition of Real Estate Roundtable. I'm Rob Moore with Echo Properties, and as always, alongside Jeff Echo Lichtenstein, owner of Echo Properties. And Jeff, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing awesome. How about you, Rob?
Doing all right. You had a little coffee mishap this morning, you said?
Yeah, I think I got a little detergent in the coffee somehow. Somebody didn't clean a cup up, and or the Keurig or something happened. So water for me today.
Oh, that's the worst, expecting coffee and getting cleaning solution. So this morning we have another interesting topic we're going to talk about, and it's about withdrawing of an offer. So what does that mean? That's if an offer's put in and I get second thoughts.
Yeah, and then after that, I think we're going to go into sales, and sales information is all really positive stuff. And so but there's some really interesting things in between the lines to see what the sales are at as we're coming into season. But withdrawing an offer and this happens. It happens more so on the buy side than the sell side. But you write an offer up on a home, and then you have second thoughts on it. I remember years ago, I had a guy, this is like in Marisol, calls me up, and he's in Vegas, and his wife and him just got into a fight about it, and he said, "Can we get out of this thing?" And that was a situation, and or you find another house you like better, or on the sell side, you get another offer. So what are the rules to that? And I had a situation, we had an agent this week where on the sell side, we had a multiple offer situation, but we already countered to the first person. And the first person really didn't like the numbers, but it was good enough. It was a good compromise, and it was a contingency. It wasn't contingent on a mortgage. But then another offer came in, and it was cash. Person who wanted the house, and closing, all the terms and everything were better about this particular offer. So what do you do in that situation? So what you have to know, and this is where you have to really look who you're hiring as your realtor, and it's why it's not such an easy job. You've got to look at the contract. So I'm going to share. Let me share my screen here. Let me see if I can. I'm having a little trouble finding Give me 1 second.
Yep. So
can you see my screen right now, Rob?
I do not. No.
There we go. Got it. Okay.
Yep. There we go. Got it up.
So let me get out of this one. Can you withdraw an offer? So it goes down to section. There's a little Pikachu. That's what happens to a realtor. Get me out of here and get me out of this. Get me out of this. Get me out of this offer. We have a spot on our website. If you explore it, there's all sorts of different things in here at the top toolbar. But under buy or sell, there's something that says contracts, and you can download the contract, and this will explain what the contract is. There's different types of contracts. The as-is contract is the one that's used. Is the one that's used the most, and you've got to read. So what you have to do is you have to read the contract each time. So the contract used to be 4 pages. About 8 or 9 years ago, everybody got together and they made it longer and more intimidating. I think the lawyers wanted to get more involved, so it went from 4 pages to, depending on the contract, 11 or 12 pages.
Wow!
And a lot of that was increased font size, so it wasn't such fine print. On the back side of it, and most of what's in the contract is in the beginning. It's the beginning part of the contract is your parties, your property description, what's included in it. Section 2 has to deal with purchase price and how everything is broken down with financing or deposits, the balance at the close. Closing time, which is number 3, and time of acceptance. So there's also a spot later on that gives a definition of time. Time is we have something called the effective date, which is Effective date means the date that both parties sign off on it, and you go by that date. We're also a time is of the essence state, and that's talked about more in greater detail. Time of the essence state means you got to close when you're supposed to close, and you hand over the keys. Other states have different rules where you can change the closing date. And then it gets into financing, assignability. Most of these things never even come up in the contract once you get past the as-is inspection period. But anytime you have a problem, you've got to really know your contracts. And in this particular thing, I've got to go all the way down to...
That's a lot of reading.
to where we're going to number 13, which is, it's a lot of reading. And most of this you never use. But when you do, you do. So this is on page, starting at 6 is standards for real estate transaction standards. So it gives definitions of title examination, survey, liens. This is your time of the essence clause I was talking about under F in there. And it goes to 5 p.m. It's interesting in here, all time periods provided on the dates, whether handwritten, typewritten, shall end or occur on a Saturday or Sunday or a national holiday shall extend to 5 p.m. The next business day. That's always a good force majeure, which was rewritten after some of the hurricanes. But in here, we're talking about M. So it was M in the Clint Eastwood movie. It was M and Q. That was, I'm sorry, we're talking about O. We're going to go leave that out. This is contract not recordable, persons bound, notice delivery dates. Neither this contract nor any notice of this recorded shall be recorded in public records. The contract shall be binding and ensuring the benefit. But then it really gets into delivery. Notice and delivery given by or to the attorney or broker, including such broker's real estate licensee. That's me. Reporting any broker shall be effective as if given by or that are party. All notices must be in writing and must be made by mail, personal delivery, or electronic media. So electronic media means a text or an email, and that's what we did in this case. And the real estate agent gave notice of it. So what we did was we withdrew the offer or rescind the offer to the other party in order to, and by doing such, we canceled the contract. And at that point, now we can accept the new contract.
So you texted the person and said, hey, we'd like to withdraw the offer?
Yes, we both texted and we emailed both in there to make sure that it was delivered. On a text you get delivered on there, and you want to make sure that you get that.
Sure. If
you have time, you can go and go in there, but when you've got to move and you've got to think on your feet, very, very quickly in these situations. So on the seller side, it's only happened to me a handful of times. But when you get into a hot market like this and you get multiple offer situations, it can happen. It happens more so on the buy side because there's a longer period of time that it happens, and it can happen. It usually happens after the contract. But once the contract's signed, the buyer still has a period of time using, if it's a condo, they have 3 days where they can get out automatically if they want. And if it's an as-is contract, they can usually use that to get out within that, whatever that inspection period time is. Usually that's 10 days. But once it's signed on the sell side, the seller has no way to get out of the contract unless the buyer fails to do something. But before it's signed, you've got no deal. You're not even engaged. It's just one party has signed the contract, and you need both parties to sign off on it. So you're not stuck. You just have to move fast, and you've got to be able to prove. Now, voicemail, as you see here, a verbal doesn't mean anything.
Wow.
So that's not included in Section O. So you can't just call somebody up and say we're withdrawing the offer. It's got to be
because they haven't technically agreed to that. You can leave a message, but that doesn't mean they agreed to that.
A message doesn't mean it either. Even though that is a delivery method, verbal messages do not mean anything. So you can't withdraw it by calling up the person. And you've got to have proof of delivery. That's why I said go both email and
Text.
you want to call the person as well, but the first thing you want to do, because if you call the person and they send it over, then that wins. The written communication will win. So you want to give both notices, and if you're giving a message, you better make sure that it's right, because when you get rushed and you get flustered, we tend to talk to Siri.
Yeah.
So if you say, I'm rescinding the offer, and that in turn says, I'm rescinding the offer.
Oh no. Yes. Very true though.
And you correct it, then that's not going to hold up. So, true story out there. You've got to make sure that you've got to look at your work. You've got to, take your real estate agent has to take some deep breaths, slow down, and make sure what they're delivering, and look at it 2 or 3 times to make sure it's delivered properly, because you're dealing with contracts, and these can be major problems if you make a mistake.
So Jeff, really quick, I was just doing some social media stuff here, but if you're saying, if you send that text message, right? You send that text message. If they don't respond to that text message, if there's no response from that person, is that valid, or they need to respond to that text? Meaning you send...
No, they don't need to. Anybody can fight anything. You can go to court and fight all sorts of stuff. And the companies keeping escrow are going to be there, but you're also, and somebody could do that and say, well, I'm going to tie you up in court. Well, that's not legal to do. That's causing somebody problems, and there can be problems with that. The court could see that as somebody is trying to inflict harm to queer a deal on the other side. So usually what happens is people get hot when these things happen. A real estate agent feels, like they haven't done their job. And sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. Sometimes the owner is, I remember when the market was really bad, and I didn't use an as-is contract, and I'm representing a seller. And this is going back 8-9 years ago, 10 years ago. And I sent over the contract by fax. That's how it was. And said, I want you to fax it back. He said, I'm going to a birthday party right now. I said, take a few minutes and send it back to me. He said, I'll be back in 3-4 hours. I was like, well, I just said, if I get a call, or if I get an email and saying they're withdrawing their offer in the next 3 hours, and you haven't sent that back,
done.
Just know that is a extremely slim possibility, but it's out there. But in that market, it was a slim possibility. Those things happened because people were changing their minds, or there was new homes coming on the market. So he said, okay, let me take 10 minutes and get this thing signed and back. And that's where I was a good agent doing that, because if my said, I don't care if I lose if the deal doesn't happen, I'm going to my birthday party. It's not going to make a difference in my life. But in those markets, this guy had already bought a house, and those things can make a difference. Now, 99% of the time, those things don't happen, but 1% or 2% of the time they do. And that's where you've got to tie these things up. A contract is not a contract until it's signed by all parties. And then what's going to happen when somebody contests it, it goes right to the attorneys. And then the attorneys are going to look for missignatures. They're going to look for mistakes in the MLS. Yeah. We had one a week ago. We represented a buyer. It said and this was a pretty large transaction. It was a couple $1 million, and it was regarding septic, and it said sewer in the MLS. Sure enough, the property was septic, but the old listing agent the listing agent copied what was in there before. It was some kind of a foreclosure or something by the state, and didn't bother to check it. Now the person remodeled the house, so had to know it was septic in there, and but it still didn't. So on our side, it became to our clients, do you want the house? The first thing is, do you want the house? If not, I think we would have been able to get out of it for sure with that, because septic was not even available. It wasn't even a remedy. It wasn't on the street. And then our clients in this particular case, they had used septic before, and they were comfortable with septic. The comps were fine. It was a good buy, and it was no matter what, it was going to be a good buy, and they wanted to live here. So then you have to make, there's different decisions that you have to make. We can give different options. One option is, do you want us to cancel it? And we're going to probably need to get an attorney involved in that. And I think that would have been an easy cancel. But the second part is, if you still want the house, can you negotiate, something on their behalf? And then those kind of questions come up. So there's gray area in there. But that would have been one where we would have been able to get out of the house, because there wasn't even a remedy, for the issue.
It's amazing. Every time I see contracts like the one you have in front of me, my dad was, it still is, a stickler. He will go to places like, oh, sir, just sign here. And it's like this, long document like this and sign it. My dad always gets mad at me. You have to read through everything. Like that. But this is something you need to do.
The way to look at a contract is, for a real estate agent, is you have to understand the basics of it. And then you have to know enough of this, and you learn stuff all the time. You learn every day. I've been in this 20 years, and I'm looking over thousands of contracts, so that you do pick up stuff. And I'm always reading over basic stuff in here. I've got to reread over the language. But you have to know, it's like that old Clint Eastwood in the Dirty Harry movie said, man has to know his limitations. Yeah. It was like the theme of the movie. And you have to know your limitations. And where real estate agents get themselves in trouble is they don't know their limitations. They don't read it, or they'll start writing verbiage in, and they're not a lawyer. And verbiage you've got to get from when you're doing addendums or you're doing different things. That's where you typically get into issues. If you work within your limitations, a realtor can totally operate without much legal advice. They're not going to need that much. But you have to know when you're outside that limitations. That's when you call a lawyer up. And in this one, that's what we did. I talked to 3 different lawyers to make sure that we were doing the right thing, and got multiple opinions on this. And you've got to have relationships also with the right people, where you get those answers quickly back from a busy attorney in there. But we'll go through this type of stuff all the time when we're running into these types of things. I'm the broker, so I see a lot of this from we have over 60 agents. So I'll get a call from an agent and got to figure out what the situation is.
Sure.
Most of the time you can figure out what the issue is. You've got to look at and understand what the other side is saying, understand the legal part of it, and then mostly understand if there's a practical solution. They rarely, I've never had an E&O claim ever on me in my entire career. I've never been to court in anything. They rarely get there, and usually you have to try to figure out the solution. That's what you want to do, and not get hot with people.
So for those of you watching along with us this morning, thank you so much. If you have any questions, please comment in the comment section below. Any questions for Jeff when it comes to withdrawing an offer. Maybe you have some other questions, I don't know. And also, I left a link to the blog that we're talking about withdrawing an offer, so you can click on that link.
Put a link also to the contract section, okay. Because it goes into we go into all the basics of a contract, misconceptions, the difference between the contracts that are in here, and then and really outlines everything in there, and then it gives you contracts to look over so that you can read it yourself, and get familiar with it. But it's the contract portion, and part of why a real estate agent's job is so difficult. When we get a realtor nationwide, the failure rate is 83%.
Wow.
And it's higher in Florida because there's a greater propensity of realtors. But the reason it's so high is it looks like a really easy job from the outside, and it isn't. And the reason it isn't and the reason it's not so replaceable is there's so many things a realtor does. A realtor is, besides being the marketing arm, and there's so much within the marketing, and there's so much within doing all the work, and how well you present it, how well you read people and are able to communicate. It's organization of being on time and juggling a schedule and knowing how to search within the MLS and your knowledge of different situations. and such. And the marketing piece is a big piece of it, and they're expending their dollars for you. But then you've got to know contracts. And you really have to know, you have to understand, and there's different addendums to use. Do a whole show on addendums. There's mold addendums and contingency of sale addendums and seller's disclosure pieces. And there's countless amounts of addendums, but those pieces need to be known. And then you're emotionally talking with people too, going through what they're through and figuring out different solutions. So it's a number of jobs all combined in one. Sometimes just in a sales job, all you're doing is you're selling that particular product, and it's move on to the next presentation, or you're in a retail setting in a store, or even more complex. But real estate agents do so much, and then learning the contracts, learning how to search, learning how to do all these things. There's a lot to it, and the longer you're in it, the more knowledge that you have. You can be very dangerous, when you're a rookie, because you've got to get a lot of knowledge, up to speed fairly quickly. So that's a little bit of contracts. That was, I thought, a really interesting one. Mm-hmm. Make sure it is signed and signed properly, no missignatures. And if you're in a situation that you've sent out something, you don't have to live with it if it's not executed and delivered. It's got to be executed and delivered, not just executed. So now let's look at September, and September is rolling like a right now. And if you look in Palm Beach County, and we'll start with single family homes, and this is September 2020 versus September 2019. In 2019, the market was starting to do well by that point. Look at how it's up 28.6%. Sales are in Palm Beach County. Wow. That's staggering. Yeah. And that is due, at first when we were hitting, and you were looking at the July numbers and the August numbers and the June numbers, those were sales that were where we had those were pent up demand sales. A lot of them were where people, couldn't do anything because of COVID in March and April, and people were scared. These are numbers of people moving to the county or people moving around. With that, we are seeing that happen now. This is where they're moving out of other cities, whether it's from down south in Miami or Fort Lauderdale or from other parts of the cities as everything is opened up more. But that is a huge increase in the amount of transactions that are taking place. So it is a total hotcake market. If you look at the average price has moved up from $355,000 to $400,000. 12.7% increase from a year ago. And when you read in New York, it's down, sales are down 46%. There's something's happening somewhere else that's causing this. And that's where we're just in this great market in here, and there's movement over here. So that is pretty staggering. We also don't have a lot of, we went to a friend's house last night in Sonoma Isles, which is a 275 home community in Jupiter. And there was a banner sign up that said less than 35 homes left. Mm-hmm. They're about done. They'll be done by the end of the year, possibly. There's just not a lot of new construction out there. So when the new construction pieces end, and those numbers aren't even included in this, I think that we're going to see some increases in here. Average price, this is just staggering, from the original list price received is now 96.5%. There's 3.5% movement out there is what they're saying. It's a big deal. Average days on market. Now, this is probably the craziest thing. It's went from 53 days to 27 days.
Yeah. Wow. So they're going quick.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And you're also in, September last year was a really good month, but we're not in season at all. September usually is not the best time. It's just unbelievable. Active inventory. we're at 4,100 homes versus 6,100 homes. There's 32% less inventory.
Selling more than toilet paper.
There's nothing.
There's no toilet paper left. There's no homes left. They're selling like toilet paper.
I mean,
Unreal.
it's really interesting. So there's just not a lot of there's just not much supply of inventory out there right now. We are, as the sign says in there, sold out.
Yeah.
So what that means is that it typically means prices are going to go up. And then if you go to townhomes and condos, and these are together, you're running into the same thing. A lot more sales. 1,200 versus 976. Now, townhomes and condos are very different, and I'm working on something that will separate this out so we can look more at it. Prices have went up as well, not as much. They're 9% versus 12%, so there's a 3% differential there. Months of inventory is about the same. And here's what is interesting. We actually have more of a supply of condos right now in here. 5.1, it's a missed mark up above, but 5.1 versus 4.8. So there's a sign in there. My guess is there's more condos available than townhomes. And that's due for two reasons. One of it is condos are a product that moves more in season, that really is a seasonal buyer. And I think there's some COVID pieces that are related to that. But once COVID's over, people love the condo lifestyle. I think that rebounds. So that's what's happening in residential real estate. It is just wild on how much is going on right now in terms of sales. And these numbers are just, I'm scrolling through there, but look at that. That is just a hot market.
Well, that's the amazing thing, Jeff, right there. And this is on our website, so anyone could take a look at this, and I'll actually post a link to this also in our comment section here. But you talking about it is one thing, but actually seeing it and seeing the graphs really opens your eyes. It does. It's amazing.
And it's also in every price point. So it's not like it's going in and the bottom part of the market's strong or the real high end strong. It's all across the board. We're seeing a good market, and where it really helps the most is if you've got a home that hasn't been updated or is or that needs work or does not really have the best location. When there's no inventory, which is where we're at right now, where you've got really low inventory, the buyer in here, it doesn't have much choices. So especially if they're stuck within a price point, so they have to settle for things. And when they settle, it moves the bad inventory out. So homes that people are taking on remodeling projects, and they may not want to, but they don't have a choice in the matter, or they're settling for locations because they don't have a choice in the matter. And so there's a lot to unpack there, but you have to be prepared now as a buyer. And I don't know what's going to be really interesting is going to be when we come into season, January, February, March, and the renters are all here. What happens? And we're also going to have, we may not have the Canadians this year down nearly as much. So there may be some pent up demand that happens in 2022 or towards the latter part of 2021, where we end up with some buyers here who want to be here, but they're having to pass the season. And so there's a lot of, and there's new construction, but there's not nearly enough because the land over the last 20 years has been built out throughout the area. So it's really going much more out west or more up north.
Sure. Not to backtrack here with the stats we just had, I just saw a question that came in. For some reason, LinkedIn froze on me, but I see it now. Carolyn Greenhouse asks, and this is going back to, can you withdraw an offer? If the time to accept on an offer passes, can the seller just change the date or do we need to submit a new offer with an accept date?
No, you can use it. You can use an old contract as long as as long as you cross off the dates and put a new time of acceptance. Then all parties need to initial, off of it. But it can go on and on and on. The standard is always it's always 2 days. In a contract. There's a time in here. I don't remember where time of acceptance is. There's a spot where it puts time. This is time as of the essence part of it. Mm-hmm. But there's a piece in there where you've got 2 days is what's typically written in. But you can write in whenever. I usually, when I'm representing a buyer, I will write in. I usually never go 2 days out because you're just inviting, maybe your competition comes in with something. I like short acceptance periods of time when you write the initial offer. There are times where you let it go farther than that, but not often. Usually it's to the buyer's advantage to tie these things up within short periods of time, because the buyer usually can get out of it within that as-is period in there. So if you look at number 3, time of acceptance, if you look at number 45, this offer shall be deemed withdrawn deposit if any shall be returned to buyer unless otherwise stated. Time for acceptance of any counteroffer shall be within 2 days after the day of the counteroffer was delivered. So if you don't do anything, it's always going to be 2 days. But I usually write in 1 day or less in there within a specific time, and I'll put you can always write EST, like 5 p.m. Eastern, time when you're doing it as well. You want to get these things signed, but yeah, contracts they can sit for a week, and sometimes you want to just write up a clean contract if things are changed or if there's too much back and forth and signatures all over and it's hard to read. But you can just do a new acceptance, period of time, and that's valid.
Very interesting topic today, and then those numbers that you just showed for September. It's incredible looking back at last year to where we are. Yeah, the graphs. I mean, you could say the numbers all you want, but when you can physically see it with the graphs, that's just so powerful. Unreal.
Yeah, you're just what you're looking at is a shift in population.
Yep.
And where there's just when there's an earthquake, someone told me a long time ago, things don't settle back the way that it is, and because of things which we've talked about previously, just being able to work in different parts of the country through Zoom technology, being people making life decisions of where they want to leave, and not, lots of people decide not to live in cities but go to more of a a single family home environment, with a pool and in the backyard, and people looking at their dollars and cents in this thing too. So people have thought about making moves and making life decisions, and a lot of people have executed them during the pandemic. And you're seeing businesses also move here and talk about moving here, and that makes a difference too. So when there's more, like when we have Carrier here and the Scripps over the years, we've had more industry, move here. So it's not strictly, hospitality, but you're seeing people look at Florida corporations as a place to move their business to, whether it's out of California or Illinois or New York, where the taxes are higher and the weather is better here, and it makes sense for so many different regions. And I think we're also in such a weird spot where we've got the intracoastal and the water and culture and everything built out, and there's so much population here now. Everybody has a relative or a friend that they know in the area when they're coming from somewhere else. That's also makes it easier for people to make a move. And we have a lot of choices of airports. If you're in Palm Beach County, you've got Palm Beach International right there, and then Fort Lauderdale within an hour, and Miami is just a little bit past that. So there's a lot of options of travel, as well.
Very, very conveniently located, as you said. So, can you pull down the? Is that the last thing you wanted to show on the slides?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so just pull down that share screen, I guess. We go back to regular view. There we go. We're both on the screen again. So interesting, again, topic today. So every Sunday morning, 9 a.m., you know where to find us, right here, doing a real estate roundtable on all different type of topics. If there's a topic, if you're watching right now, which we have some viewers watching, if there's something you're interested in, leave a comment below, and maybe we can do some real estate roundtables on some of those topics too. So if there's any specific topics you're interested in, leave a comment in the comment section. Any questions, also put those in there, or you can just give Jeff a call. Jeff would like to help you out. He'll answer your questions. Jeff, how can people get in touch with you?
Email is jeff@echofineproperties.com. And you can call me. My cell number directly is 561-346-8383, 346-8383.
Just don't bother him
So
today.
call, text, email.
Just don't bother him today. He's got to check his fantasy football roster and follow fantasy football today. You're in first place, by the way, I believe.
Am I?
Let's see. Hold on. Let's see this. Yeah, I believe you are in first place in the league. You are. Yep, first place, 5-1, with the second most points scored. No, third most points scored in the league.
I'm in another league, and I'm 2-4 with the most points in the league.
Wait, you're what? 2-4?
I'm in this other league. I have 2 wins, 4 losses, and I have the most points in the league.
Wow.
So it's like every game I've had,
Ooh.
like everybody's had like their best game possible.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So you're going against Millie's brother. He's in second place. So this is the battle for first.
Who was Millie's brother?
He is Rieger the Stallion.
Rieger the Stallion?
He is second place at a 5-1 record also. So this is the battle for first place today, and you're projected to win.
Yeah.
So
I am projected to win. So my name this year is, I've always been the Bears because I'm from Chicago, but this year it's the Vaccine.
I saw that. Yes.
With a capital X and a small x.
Yes. So, well, I think that does it for us today. That was again. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Vimeo,
And TikTok.
YouTube, TikTok. Yeah, we're getting into the TikTok game. We have one of our photographers. She's very keen with TikTok. I'm still learning it. I am playing with it. Still learning it. I know it's fun. I see some fun videos. My kids love TikTok.
I like it. It's all good. There's all positive stuff. There's nothing negative going on TikTok.
Happy stuff. Yes, we need more. Happy.
It's funny and it's like very quick stuff.
Very quick. Yeah, fun stuff. So that does it, Jeff. Yeah. So
all right.
So thanks for waking up with us this morning, having your cup of coffee, your breakfast in bed. I don't know what you're doing, but thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week, 9 a.m. same time, same place. Have a great day, everyone.
So long, everybody.